Hello, everyone. Despite what you are seeing, I am not, in fact, PIEGUYRULZ, but I am in a pretty dark place, so I guess I am not too far off from where he has been and might very well be right now. Seriously, have any of you seen him recently? I certainly haven't, and I was expecting to see him this past December. Even though I have not seen a single episode of Adventure Time in full, I was really looking forward to watching a fully edited video of nothing but his opinions, as that is what drew me to his channel over 10 years ago. However, for the past few months, there was not only no Adventure Time Season 3 video, but there was no PIEGUYRULZ content to be found, either on his main channel, gaming channel, or Twitter. Of course, I don't feel like Pieguy owed us fans this content, as we are not his employers, but it is disappointing that he did not upload a single video to his channel in 2022 and did not give us an explanation as to why this was the case. Of course, this was not the first time that I felt let down by him, but that is going into the history of what led us to his disappearance in the first place. If you are watching this video, then that means that I have come to the conclusion that Pieguy is not going to address this in the near future, so I am going to look at what Pieguy's channel has evolved into throughout the years, and I'm going to use what he made and told us about himself to speculate about just what exactly happened to him. So, are you ready, kids? Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ not here, and this is a tragic story. Section 1. The Sweet and Sour History of a Pieguy. Part 1. Young and Innocent. In case you don't know, Pieguy referred to himself as AJ in his series where he talks about his first year of college. In his topic of discussion video on Kids WB, he said that he went by Alex as a kid, and in a video where he shows off his HBO Max account, we see that one of his profile names is Alexander, so I think it's safe to assume that Alexander is his first name, Alex was his childhood nickname, and J is his last initial. Anyway, Alexander was born on November 4th, 1993, and was raised in New Jersey. Growing up, I think that AJ could be best described as an aspiring filmmaker. He wanted to act, he wanted to direct, and he had a strong admiration for certain kinds of media at the time. All of this showed that he was definitely of a creative mindset. However, his social circle during his childhood did not share his same passions. Maybe as a result of him being introverted, he lacked an outlet to truly express himself. Heck, it wasn't even his friends or family that introduced him to YouTube in the first place. It was someone who presented their homework assignment to their class as a YouTube video. And it was through this educational means that AJ decided to use YouTube as an outlet for his two passions. The first one is video games, with Nintendo being a favorite developer of his in particular. Pieguy did make a video with his thoughts on E3 2011, but that video was posted to his Lip account, which is lost to time. I did watch it back in the day, and I remember him talking almost solely about Nintendo's presentation, with the only thing he really wanted to say about the other two of the big three press conferences is that Minecraft was announced to be coming to the Xbox 360 and the newly announced PlayStation Vita. His favorite series that Nintendo puts out is probably Pokemon, if his Let's Play channel is anything to go by. But back in 2008, Animal Crossing Wild World had his attention, and since one of his favorite series on YouTube at the time was The Legend of Zelda Abridged, he decided to make a Wild World Abridged series, and this officially kicked off his YouTube channel on April 10th, 2008. However, I am not sure that I would call it an abridged series. Admittedly, I have not watched all of his Wild World Abridged series, but from what I have seen, I think I can see why he would call it an abridged series, but I don't think it fully qualifies for that moniker. Granted, I am certainly no expert on the abridged series genre, as the only one that I have seen all of is Sword Art Online Abridged, or at least all of SAO Abridged that was available to binge in early 2018, and even then, I have not seen the original show, so I have nothing to compare it to. But speaking of which, that was his other big passion as a kid. AJ cared a lot more about Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Kids WB when compared to his peers, and while this was not the first kind of content he made for his channel, it would only be a matter of time before he dove into talking about the issues of these networks and their cartoons, or lack thereof in the case of Cartoon Network at the time. While he was able to pump out 10 episodes of Wild World Abridged in a month, it was all the little fanfare. There were already quite a few video game themed channels at the time, so Pieguy's channel did not really stick out. Rants about Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, on the other hand, were a bit more unique, so on May 18th, 2008, he released his first ever Cartoon Network rant. The video is mainly a rant about the show Out of Jimmy's Head, although he also brushes upon the Fried Dynamite programming block. Despite the Out of Jimmy's Head series finale airing just a week and a half after this rant was released, the video received much more fanfare than Wild World Abridged, even though the quality of the video very much does not hold up to what he would later make. So yeah, that is the humble origin of the PIEGUYRULZ YouTube channel. And just to address it, the name PIEGUYRULZ was a randomly generated name for his account for Cartoon Orbit, which was Cartoon Network's online gaming platform from 2000 to 2006. That is not to say that AJ does not like Pie though, as he does have a special fondness for it. His favorite pie is pistachio pudding pie, which is a pie that my godmother used to make for birthdays, and let me tell you, it was a very sweet thing for her to make. Rest in peace, Eileen. Anyways, I think PIEGUYRULZ is a really good name for his channel, and I really like how it can be shortened to Pieguy as well. In fact, I liked it so much that when I created my Nintendo Network ID in 2012, I gave myself the username MyGuyRules because of how much I liked PIEGUYRULZ at the time. And I still have that username to this day, so now I will anticipate all of your incoming friend requests. Moving on though, for the next few years, he just, well, kind of did whatever he wanted to do. He had the Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon rants that grounded his channel, but in general, he just went wherever his passion took him. And this is great for a creative mindset. The more passion there is, the easier it is to make content around it. In that way, the passion is the grease that kept the PIEGUYRULZ channel gears turning. And since he kept content coming pretty consistently, he was able to condition his viewers to expect fairly regular content. And YouTube loves promoting creators that upload consistently. Right? Well, by June of 2013, after doing YouTube for over 5 years, his channel only had just over 4,600 subscribers. You see, the problem with simply making whatever you want to make is that you cast too wide a net. AJ covered so many different topics, and they included Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network topics, of course, but also topics ranging from Pixar films to Spider-Man comics to Chipotle restaurants to The Catcher in the Rye. There was so much content that he covered, but in a surface level way that probably left quite a few people not satisfied enough to subscribe. That is, however, if they knew that Pieguy's channel even existed in the first place. You see, around this time, YouTube was undergoing a shift. In an effort to curb the amount of clickbait on the website, YouTube moved away from promoting channels that made a lot of content, like Pieguy's, to heavily promoting longer videos, as longer videos led to longer retention rates, which led to more time that users spent on the platform, which led to more ad revenue for YouTube. Because of all this, the question was clear for Pieguy. What could he really lean into that would result in longer videos and more videos that went deep into a subject that a lot of people would be interested in? Well, as it turns out, the answer that he was looking for was hiding in a pineapple under the sea. Part 2. The SpongeBob Guy. Now, AJ has definitely shown to have a fascination with SpongeBob SquarePants on his channel in the early days. He made a 2-part rant on the show in 2009 for the show's 10th anniversary, and he made some individual episode reviews in 2012, which is around the time that I started watching Pieguy consistently. Heck, he even taped bouncy balls to SpongeBob's slippers so he could jump around with his feet inside of SpongeBob. But the public discourse around SpongeBob at the time, and trust me, there was a lot of discourse around the show in the appropriate places, was about whether or not the show was good or bad at the time. It was pretty universally beloved before the first movie came out, but then many claimed that it went on a downhill trajectory after that and would never be good again. AJ wanted to see if that was true, and if you want to fairly judge everything about a show, you might as well watch, well, everything. And so, on June 20th, 2013, AJ came out with a review of the first season of the show with the intent to review every episode of the show season by season. And people seemed to like it. It was nice to see someone look at every episode with a critical eye instead of make general statements about the show or be outright dismissive of it for being a quote-unquote kids show. However, this did not get his channel to take off right away. While his reviews were generally watched and enjoyed by his audience at the time, the series did not bring in too many new viewers, and, as such, while he did streamline his channel to start solely talking about individual episodes of cartoons, he did not lean into the SpongeBob thing too much yet for the first year after he started the new series. But then something changed, and it had to do with AJ's style. You see, if you watch any videos from PIEGUYRULZ about cartoons that is not among the earliest stuff, you will see that he does not use clips from the shows that he talks about. This is because he knew about just how badly the YouTube copyright system got abused even back in the day. However, this made his videos quite boring to watch, even if his opinions were very interesting. YouTube is a video sharing platform, and videos are a visual medium. If you do not take advantage of that medium on a regular basis, then your channel is going to falter when compared to other channels that give your eyes something to feast on. Heck, this is why I am using PyCons for this video. Despite the fact that this video is pretty lengthy to the point where it would be much easier for me to just leave a still frame up on the screen, I want to give you guys something to watch, hence the PyCons. And yes, I do trust that AJ will not abuse the copyright system to strike me down here. But hold on, I just jumped the gun here. What exactly is a PyCon? Well, it's a drawing of a face that was originally created by AJ's ex-girlfriend Erin that he uses to represent the emotion that is inflected through what he is saying at the time. Since reviewing every episode of a show is going to run through a wide gamut of emotions, especially when the episodes are very mixed, as is the case with the SpongeBob episodes that he was about to cover, the PyCons would be changing constantly throughout each episode of his Every Episode of SpongeBob Reviewed series, thus giving the video something interesting to watch. and with this, he uploaded his first video with PyCons on June 6th, 2014, with every episode of SpongeBob Season 4 reviewed. And with this in place, along with Aaron doing a lot of other art for his videos that also made them much more appealing to look at, AJ's channel really started to take off. Now he went from gaining a couple hundred subscribers in a good month to gaining a couple hundred subscribers on a good day, and his channel was now getting hundreds of thousands of views in a month when it used to take him several. And with this, the change in his channel became pretty noticeable. Not only did he go on to use the PyCons in pretty much every video that was not vlog style, but he also created 2 brand new series related to the sponge. They were Spongy Bits, where he took a deeper dive into episodes that he already reviewed, and Square Theory, where he looked at the themes of the show that spread across multiple episodes. This is in addition to a review of the first movie with character analysis, 5 videos that he made just on the build-up to the second SpongeBob movie, plus a first impressions video and a more formal review. This is not to say that his channel was entirely SpongeBob, as there were other videos on his channel that he still worked on. The other main series that he had going on at this time was his Schneider's Bakery series, including Bottom of the Bakery, where he looked at the worst Schneider's Bakery episodes produced, and Bizarro Bakery, where he looked at episodes that are similar in nature to the Bottom of the Bakery episodes that he covered, but done right. This series was another modest success respective to his channel, as there are not many other YouTubers talking about these episodes, but by and large, his SpongeBob content got the most views, and he knew that. This all peaked in the summer of 2016 when he released a dozen SpongeBob videos in the span of 2.5 months, and there was a good reason for it reaching a new level around this time. AJ had just finished his last semester of college in the spring and wanted to launch straight into a full-time YouTube career. At the time, though, his channel only had just over 41,000 subscribers. Now that is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but it is hard to make a stable living off of that amount of subscribers. Really, the only way for a channel like that to get to career viability, aside from taking sponsorships, which he never did, or start up a Patreon, which he did but only for the season reviews, is to focus on the most popular kind of content to grow your channel before you specialize. At first, he just posted a lot of videos, but when none of them really broke out, he decided to go all in on the season reviews, which were the biggest moneymakers, especially when that was where the Patreon got involved. This included seasons from other shows, as he was going to expand the every episode reviewed brand. Judging by how hugely positive the reception was for the announcement of this, it was safe to say that by the end of 2016, the future of Pieguy's channel was looking pretty bright. And then, just a few months later, the apocalypse happened and ad revenue was slashed across the board. All of a sudden, channels with smaller subscriber counts were not career viable anymore. And at the end of July, AJ released a video saying that he could not do it. YouTube was not going to work out for him, so he had to get a stable job and told his audience that videos were going to be less plentiful and more specialized since YouTube was going to go back to just being a hobby for him. He also shut down his Patreon at this time, as he did not want to be beholden to anyone when it came to YouTube content creation, as that was no longer going to be his career path. While it was sad to hear that we would not be getting as much content, I totally understood what was going on here. I would never want someone to lead an unstable lifestyle just to create entertainment for us, and it certainly wasn't his fault that he had to reel back here. That was just the way that the YouTube cookie crumbled, and he had to cut his losses and lead a different lifestyle. As such, I could look at this new announcement video and, while I obviously wasn't thrilled about it, I could accept it, especially since he told us what was going on, and he assured us that he was not going to go away for an extended period of time. And, to his credit, for the last 5 months of 2017, he released 11 new videos, with all but one of them being fully edited with PyCons for at least part of the video. Granted, one of those was simply a compilation of his SpongeBob Season 9 videos, but that video ended up becoming the most popular video on his channel, with it having over 1.8 million views at the beginning of 2023. And going into 2018, when things already did not look too bad for his channel, Pieguy made sure that his channel's 10th anniversary did not go unrecognized. Basically, his 10th anniversary video talked about how he got started, what he has accomplished, and how he is proud of the newer content that he created, and that kind of content was not going away. And from that point, going into the summer, he started to go back to the 1 video a week schedule that he used to have. It really felt like he had worked out his work-life balance, and, as a fan, I was happy to see more of his content coming out. And then, something happened. But before I get to that, we need to go back a bit. It's time to start digging through the mud. Part 3. Don't be a jerk, it's Pieguy. When AJ started his channel, he was, well, young and innocent, as I stated in part 1. In the earliest days of his channel, when he wasn't talking about the kinds of media that he cared about, he did things like showing off his double-jointedness, or how to shoot whipped cream from your hands with a balloon and thumbtacks. Yeah, these videos did not get as many views as his other videos, but they were so endearing and just plain cozy. The perfect kind of videos for those days when you want to escape from the issues of the world around you, which is what YouTube does best. However, the older that AJ got, the more serious his world became. Now, I'm sure that we can all relate to that. Everyone watching this video who is an adult has gone through something like that, and I think it is safe to say that most of us have learned that we need to have a life where we have our serious issues that we deal with and a life for our entertainment that is separate. Pieguy, however, did something a little different. The first time that it became apparent was towards the middle of 2013, right after he completed his first year of college. When he was home for summer break, he made College Confessions, a 7-part series where he talked about how his experiences during that time were by and large absolutely horrible. He transferred to a new school as a result, but I gotta be honest, his experiences did not sound that bad to me, at least when it came to the professor and class side of things. For example, in his Intro to Computing class video, he said that he willingly lost points on assignments because it was too inconvenient for him to complete the assignments at the time that his professor wanted him to submit them, and he was unwilling to call the professor to try to get clarification on which assignments he needed to complete. Look, I might not have necessarily been a model student, but I can tell you that good students are willing to go through those hurdles in order to get the best grade possible. I say this because that is what I did, and as a result, while AJ got a C in his introductory computing class, the lowest grade that I ever got in my 4 years of college was a B+ in Calc 3. In fact, after I quit swimming halfway through my college tenure because it was taking up so much time and energy, I got a 4.0 GPA for every single one of my 4 remaining semesters. And, for the record, it did not feel like hell for me to do this. Sure, there were bad days on campus and horrible days at that, but overall, college was the best time of my life hands down, and I miss it dearly. And look, I know that it might not be entirely fair to make these comparisons here, since not only did we go to different schools, but very different schools. I went to Illinois College, which might sound like a big school in a big college town, but it is actually a tiny school with less than 1,000 undergrads, at least when I started, in the middle of nowhere in, well, you can probably guess the state. AJ, on the other hand, went to school in the city. He called the school University X, but judging where the picture that he used for his outros for a while was taken, it looked like he may have went to Pace University. Regardless, Manhattan is an extremely different environment than rural Illinois. I know this because I went to Manhattan for the first time in December to visit one of my university student friends. Granted, he goes to Columbia, which is in Upper Manhattan as opposed to Lower Manhattan, but still, I got a good feel for Manhattan during my time there. And considering that AJ said that all of the buildings on his campus closed early by college student standards, and the only option other than his room at that time was to roam the streets of Manhattan after spending a few days there, yeah, I can see why that would be a problem, and that is an issue that I did not have. However, the one area that I can sympathize the most with here is with the description of his classmates. Admittedly, some of what he discussed here, particularly the content that pertained to his roommates, just felt like he was talking about how he had an opposite personality from those that he lived with and a generally low tolerance for dealing with annoyances. However, that doesn't change the fact that he had to deal with several people that were extremely insolent in multiple ways. Simply put, his classmates at University X generally sounded like big jerks, and Pieguy was not going to stand for this at all. I mean, heck, he admitted as a 22-year-old that one of his all-time favorite Christmas songs is the SpongeBob song, Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas. Not to say that that isn't a great song, because I especially loved it too when I was younger, but still, very interesting. And while no college confessions came out of his new school, that did not mean that he did not stop ranting about jerks. Instead, he moved on to ranting about jerks on the internet. The first example of this came in March of 2015 when he made a rant on Anita Sarkeesian. The video has since been made private, but I did watch it back in the day. What I remember from it is that his main issue with Anita Sarkeesian is that she treated her opinions like they were gospel and lashed out at anyone who disagreed with her, thus making AJ feel inferior. While this was all definitely valid and Anita Sarkeesian was certainly no stranger to criticism at the time, it still felt weird for Pieguy to make an entire video about this, especially when his channel had nothing at all to do with feminism. Sure, he has called out people before, but those are mainly people like network executives during rants on things like Truth or Square, or fanatics who idolize people like Fred for making mindless entertainment. The main person that he called out before this was Seth MacFarlane for seeming like, you guessed it, a jerk with a big ego when it comes to how he handles his cartoons. But this was the first time that he called out an internet personality for being a jerk, outside of nasty people in the YouTube comments that he criticized in his original YouTube rant in the early days. To which I think it is safe to say that every major YouTuber has gone through that YouTube culture shock at some point. And needless to say, it did not stop there for AJ. Not long after his Anita Sarkeesian video, he did a Twitch livestream where he played video games and answered questions from fans in April 2015. At least, that's when I think this took place because this is also no longer available. One question that he got was about creators that he did not like, and he mentions the Game Grumps, which, to my knowledge, was a channel that was well liked, at least at the time, unlike Anita Sarkeesian's channel. Why did he mention them? Well, as we would later find out, it is because he blames them for spawning the unbelievably toxic and, you guessed it again, jerky parts of the Sonic the Hedgehog fanbase. Then, shortly after that, in May of 2015, in his Bottom of the Bakery episode on the Sam and Cat episode #BlueDogSoda, he mentions how the guy who wants to ban the soda in the episode has over-the-top phony mannerisms that are like those of the irate gamer. and he uses the extremely frustrated PyCon when he says his name specifically, and he says that the guy in the episode is, say it with me, a jerk for no reason. And in October of 2015, he made a video about how social justice warriors on the internet are bullying an artist in the Steven Universe fan community. And after this, he would continue to call out YouTube channels that spawned controversies due to abusive, aka extremely jerkish, behavior, ranging from the React World controversy to the Change the Channel controversy to especially the Pokemon Let's Go controversy, where he talked about just how nasty a lot of the people in the fanbase can be. Simply put, talking about these less than savory people was a small but definite part of his channel, even though he did not really draw attention to it. That is, until, as I mentioned earlier, that something happened. Or should I say, someone happened, and when I say someone, I mean the someone who created your childhood. Part 4. The Butch Hartman Guy. On June 19th, 2018, AJ made a video about Butch Hartman's Kickstarter for Hoaxis Entertainment, a streaming service that would have every kind of content out there, all designed to reconnect the family. What especially raised an eyebrow here is that he did not announce anybody else working on this project, making it look like he was going to be creating this service all on his own. Because someone who has nothing but work on cartoons for a living can do all of that, right? Clearly, this project sounded like it had noble intentions, but it sounded ridiculous when you actually think about it for just a moment. So Pieguy made a video simply talking about how this looked like a bad Kickstarter from a good guy. However, as the summer went on, more stories broke about Butch Hartman that were a lot more serious. From secretly trying to indoctrinate children to insulting those that did not have the same resume as him, Elmer's true character was shown to be very rancid, and Pieguy was there for all of it. He made 3 more videos that summer, along with hosting 2 live streams and being part of 2 other live streams, all about the nasty stuff that this real-world individual did. And, despite probably not being the content that the vast majority of his subscribers came to his channel to see, these videos ended up doing really well for him, with all of them getting more views than he had subscribers. And when this happens, naturally, a lot of new people become subscribers. And so, in July of 2018, Pieguy saw the biggest growth in his channel's history, gaining almost 6,000 subscribers and garnering almost 1.2 million views that month. However, needless to say, this did not last. That should not be too surprising, as drama around a specific subject tends to die down when nothing new is coming out about it, and once Elmer's Kickstarter got fully funded, it was clear that we were going to be in for the long haul here. And with that, AJ moved on from the Butch Hartman drama. Right? Well, let's put a pin in this part for now, as, believe it or not, an even bigger change was taking place with PIEGUYRULZ around this time. You would think that all of this new subscriber growth would propel him to make more content than ever to serve all of his new fans. However, behind the scenes, the world was pulling the PIEGUYRULZ strings. Unbeknownst to us at the time, the world killed off the PIEGUYRULZ that most of his fans knew and loved. As it turns out, the Pieguy that had been making content for over 10 years had, in fact, been recast. Part 5. The Discussions. For roughly the first 8 years of his YouTube existence, all of AJ's videos pretty much followed the exact same format, him pre-recording a video where he goes over his opinions on his own. Sure, in the early days when he was much younger, they could come off as more stream of consciousness-like, but his scripting and editing seemed to increase as the years went on, presumably because he got more proficient at both. And there were a couple of episodes that featured other YouTubers, like his French Biz Magic review with Wiley1080 and his I'm with Stupid Spongy Bits with Mr. Enter, but those videos were still very much scripted and edited. It felt like him and his collaborators were genuinely putting on a production, rather than simply hanging out and casually talking like friends do. Now, that content type that he made is what and I would assume most of his subscribers wanted to see from his channel, but that is not necessarily to say that he could not do anything else, and after several years of being on this platform, he started to branch out a little bit. It started on November 3rd, 2015, when he did his very first YouTube livestream, a TV log on the Adventure Time episode Varmints. It was the first time that he came to YouTube with video without having produced any of it beforehand. However, this was clearly just an experimental thing, as the stream only lasted for 12 minutes. Which was actually shorter than the standard length of the TV logs he was putting out around that time, and really short by average livestream standards. He would later go on to do livestreams in cases that actually made sense, like doing livestreams after each of the SpongeBob season reviews that were specifically designed for those who were supporting him on Patreon. He also did a livestream of him voting in the 2017 Kids' Choice Awards, which is his most viewed livestream to date with over 64,000 views. Keep in mind, though, he has over 75,000 subscribers. Yeah, needless to say, his livestreams did not do that well, but we will get to that later. Speaking of the KCAs though, that was one of Pieguy's biggest successes. After voting in the 2013 KCAs, that video took off in a way that he did not expect. As such, he decided to make voting in those a yearly tradition on his channel. In his 2015 and 2016 voting videos though, he did them with his girlfriend, Erin. These videos felt a lot more casual than the kinds of videos that he normally put out, but it made sense in this case. It's cool to see someone go into a voting scenario blind rather than having everything scripted out beforehand, and considering that he was doing it with his real-life girlfriend, this style of video felt more adorable than lackadaisical in these cases. Then, on May 1st, 2016, AJ uploaded his first discussion video with another YouTuber, being a conversation about the Powerpuff Girls reboot at that time with Phoenix Pen. And if you don't know who Phoenix Pen is, well, that's understandable, as she has not uploaded to her channel since December 2016, although she did do a Steven Universe discussion with Pieguy in June of 2017. And trust me, that was not the only Steven Universe discussion that they did together on Pieguy's channel. The first one actually came in January 2016 as a live stream. Again, seemed like a casual thing to do, but since it was a live stream, it was not taking away from actual video production. However, from early June to mid-August 2016, Pieguy produced 5 more discussion videos, all on Steven Universe, and all with Phoenix Pen. Not to mention that he did another 4 discussion videos with her on her channel that year. Clearly, AJ was growing quite the affinity for discussion videos. Either that or you would think that Phoenix Pen was AJ's new girlfriend. But no, in the span of just over a year following his first discussion, he did 8 more discussions with other creators in addition to the Phoenix Pen discussions. Seemed like they were here to stay, right? Well, you would think so, but after his June 2017 discussion with Phoenix Pen, there would be no new discussions on his channel for over a year. This made perfect sense though, as this was around the time that he announced that he would be scaling back activity on his channel. The discussion videos felt like the appropriate place to cut back, as it gave off the vibe that it was extra content that didn't take near as much effort as his other videos and, as such, were quicker and easier to get out but at the cost of less views. It seemed like a good idea to cut back on the extra stuff and focus on the core of the channel at the time, but all of a sudden, in June of 2018, they started to come back, and boy did they. In a span of less than 2 months, there were 9 new discussion videos. There were just as many discussion videos in that time as there were non-discussion videos. Well, excluding the Butch Hartman videos anyway. Oh, and speaking of jerks, the first of these 9 new discussion videos was on Sima, the president of Nickelodeon at the time, being a massive jerk to the writers and creators at the network. How unsurprising on multiple levels. But hey, despite the surge in discussion videos on his channel, there was still enough of the main content coming consistently enough to be satisfactory. It's not like his channel was going to be the discussion channel for months on end. Right? Part 6. The Podcast. On August 12, 2018, AJ uploaded the first episode of The Recast, which is short for Revival Reboot Rehash Cast. It was a podcast starring himself, Monsters Review, and a guest of the week talking about an original piece of animation and another piece of animation that is very similar to the other piece, in addition to things like relevant news of the week and trivia and such. Basically, this was just another form of discussion videos, but with a consistent theme and podcast branding. Now, this is not the first time that AJ attempted to do a podcast. In fact, he tried to do so before his discussion videos. In 2011, he created the Piecast exclusively for his ill-fated Blip account, but to my knowledge, that only lasted 1 episode. I also have memories of him doing 2 podcast episodes in early 2013 with Wiley1080, but I believe those were taken down because Pieguy and Wiley had a falling out for a while. However, it became pretty clear pretty quickly that the recast was here to stay. Now, a YouTuber starting a podcast is nothing new. There have been a number of YouTubers who have cranked out podcast material, with H3H3 probably being the most famous example. However, Pieguy did something different from the other YouTubers who created podcasts. Admittedly, I am not a podcast person, but I do know that when YouTubers create podcasts, they are most likely either to create an entirely separate YouTube channel for their podcasts, or they don't post them to YouTube at all, instead posting them to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or SoundCloud or wherever people get their podcasts. They don't post them to their main channel because they know that most of their subscribers don't want to see it. However, as the months went by, not only would we be seeing the recast on the main PIEGUYRULZ channel, but it became pretty much all that we saw. Needless to say, it was very odd, especially since around the start of the recast, not only did we get every episode of SpongeBob Season 10 reviewed, which contained both brand new PyCons and a stinger about how Pieguy was keeping the series going, but we also got the start of a new every episode reviewed series with Teen Titans. He also relaunched his Patreon, and this time it was on a per-month basis instead of whenever the SpongeBob season reviews came out, with backers being rewarded with their names in the credits of AJ's videos that were not recast episodes. This very much indicated that there were going to be more consistent uploads to his channel beyond just the podcast. It very much looked like not only was AJ giving YouTube content creation more dedication again, but he was also expanding the most beloved parts of his channel. However, aside from a Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. video that came out on Halloween 2018, the recast, and a few other discussion-like videos, would be literally all that we would see between September of 2018 and January of 2020, except for another Butch Hartman video and a video about how Nickelodeon executives were, shocker, excessive jerks to Steven Hillenburg and his desires right before he passed away in late 2018. It seemed like, unless it was a very negative subject that got AJ fired up, the only kind of content that he could make was content that featured friends and or creators that were not hard at all to talk to. There were 69, episodes of the recast produced in the original run, with a reunion episode coming about a year and a half after that. Most of these episodes did not crack 10,000 views, with 8 of the last 10 episodes not even cracking 5,000 views on a channel that has over 75,000 subscribers. Needless to say, this was not the content that the vast majority of his subscribers, including myself, were looking for. And considering that AJ had pretty much entirely abandoned the content that drew lots of those people into his channel in the first place, combined with how he did not provide any explanation during this time, at least on his main channel, as to why his channel underwent this very sudden extreme shift, it really just felt like he did not care about us anymore, and it really is that second point that is the sticking one. Of course AJ can make whatever content he wants, he is not beholden to making a specific kind of entertainment for us, but conditioning us to expect and enjoy a kind of content that came out consistently and then suddenly pulling the rug out from under us without an immediate explanation does feel a bit insulting. It would be like if Nintendo stopped making Mario games one day and waited almost 2 years to tell us why. Of course they have the right to do that, but it would still be so jarring to have the most beloved part of Nintendo disappear into thin air and support for Nintendo would drop off as a result. But finally, almost 2 years after the recast was started, AJ would give an explanation and it was... well, it was something alright. Part 7. The Tragic Explanation. On June 30th, 2020, AJ uploaded a video titled, "What Happened to My Channel and Why I'm Done Making SpongeBob Videos." Sounds like he was getting straight to the point, right? Oh, let me tell you, there is a lot to unpack here, so let's just go through it piece by piece. So, he starts off by saying that he is going to explain why he will no longer make SpongeBob videos. You know, in case you couldn't figure that out by the title. He then says that he will talk about what the plans are for his channel. Considering that SpongeBob videos were such a big pillar of his channel and no longer producing them would leave quite a noticeable void, he must have something for the long term that he is passionate in talking about, right? Well, we'll come back to this point. And last but certainly not least in his main points for this video, he said that he would talk about what happened that caused his channel to take quite an aberration, 2 years ago, to which he mentions that it has been that long since we have seen him in the flesh. And I would say better late than never, except for the fact that 20 seconds later, he says that he believes in transparency. Because taking a radical left turn in the direction of your channel 2 years ago and leaving your audience on YouTube in the dark about it just screams transparency. Well, at least he's going to be transparent now, right? Nope! All he said was that someone who was really close to him who helped him with the channel betrayed him in a terrible way and that caused him to no longer be able to make videos on his own. That's it. That's the entire explanation that he gave. Oh, I'm sorry, were you looking for anything at all regarding the who, what, when, where, why, or how of the situation? Silly you, that's not what being transparent means. Now, I could understand the lack of details if the very simple description spoke for itself. Like if AJ was in a horrible accident, or if he'd lost an immediate family member, or his dream job, or even an extremely beloved pet. But if all he says is that he shattered because someone near and dear to him really rocked him, something that most successful YouTubers have probably gone through at some point, I'm sorry, I need more information than that. Of course, I don't need every single fine detail, but at least provide some context. Was the issue entirely channel related? Was it relationship drama? Or was it something that happened in the workplace? And who was the one who did this nasty thing? Of course, doxing this individual would not be appropriate, but AJ did not tell us if this person was a friend, a family member, a significant other, a co-worker. Heck, he did not even give us this person's gender. Seriously, he does not once refer to this person as a he or she or they. All it is just this other person that caused him to lose just about all of his traditional video making abilities after making videos on the platform for over a decade. Now look, I am not saying that I did not believe him, as I did not really have much of a reason to not believe him, but the explanation that he gave here, to be completely honest, scared me more than anything else. Why? Well, because the vibe that I got from this explanation is that someone who knew AJ really well not only did something really awful to him, but then blackmailed him into not telling his YouTube audience about anything that happened between them, even when his channel went off the rails. And then, after 2 years of living in fear under the threat of blackmail and losing his YouTube audience, he finally gives an explanation using the most vaguest of terms possible so as to not even remotely expose the identity and incriminate the one who blackmailed him. Ah! Now, to be clear, I'm going to go forward and talk about the rest of this video assuming that Pieguy was just in a very fragile state at the time and was simply negligent in not telling us about what happened to him in a timely manner because, well, if the options are either that, him outright lying to us, or blackmail, then yeah, this is me definitely giving the situation the benefit of the doubt. So moving on, he talks about how the recast was created so that there would be content on the channel during the time that AJ was trying to figure out how to make videos again. He also said that he was made bitter by the comments from people harassing him about how he wasn't making the kind of content that they came to his channel to see. This just completely baffles me. First off, AJ, this is the internet. People harass creators every day. The YouTube comments section is a safe place for the many bad eggs of the world to be mean while also being completely anonymous. That does not make it right by any means, but you really should be used to this by now, having been on the platform for over 10 years. Heck, this was something that you brought up as being an issue that the platform has in your YouTube brand from 2008. How in the world have you not learned how to brush it off in the 10 plus intervening years? Secondly, if you had told us exactly what was going on at the time, the harassment would not have gone away, but I guarantee you that it would have definitely decreased. Yes, the harassers in the comments section are thoughtless and rude, but that does not mean that all of them completely lack empathy. There are definitely people among them that would back off if they knew that you were struggling. And that's the thing, it did not look like you were struggling at all. In your recast episodes, it sounded like you were having a casual fun time with friends. This made it not sound like you were struggling to make content for your fans, but rather you were outright ignoring your fans so you could be with your friends. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have done the recast episodes with your friends. If anything, if I was in your shoes, I would probably spend a lot of time talking with my friends too in order to help rebuild myself. I'm just saying, from an outsider's perspective, it very much felt like you were quite gleeful, and as such, should be in the proper video making state, when, in reality, behind the scenes, things were not okay. This is why transparency, which you claim to believe in, is a good idea. And lastly, and the whole reason why all of this is so baffling, is that the reception to the recast episodes was overwhelmingly positive. I could understand the bitterness more if his videos were getting mass disliked, but the recast episode with the worst reception, being episode 39, has an approval rating of 87.8%. All of the other 69 episodes of the recast, at least at the time of writing, have approval ratings that are in the 90s. A couple of them even have approval ratings that are over 97%. This was a very well-liked series from those who watched it. And that's the thing, those people who didn't care about the recast and just wanted to see the standard content most likely didn't watch it. After it became clear that the recast, and again, the other occasional discussion-like videos, was pretty much all that we were going to get, most of your fans probably just grew ambivalent towards it instead of harassing you about it. Bottom line, it really does not seem like there was a significant amount of harassment here, and if there was, you really should have been able to deal with it better, and definitely could have if you simply told us what had happened to you. And I am not even 6 minutes into this almost 24-minute long video. So, chucking right along here, the next thing that he talks about is SpongeBob. Simply put, he started questioning if he was the right person to review the show. He claims that this came about because a lot of people did not like how he said that he did not enjoy several episodes because they reused plots and ideas from previous episodes, and as a result, he got a lot of criticism and backlash for that video. You know, the video that currently has an approval rating of 93.2%. Yeah, the amount of backlash from that video was apparently enough for him to think that he should not be making videos like that. Not helping was the fact that he got burned out on SpongeBob, which is what he spends the next few minutes talking about. He says that it was because of this that he did not want to make videos about SpongeBob anymore, and even if he did, we would not want it because he would not be making the videos with the passion that he used to have. I very much doubt that statement about us not wanting it, since AJ seems to believe that the amount of feedback that he gets is more negative than it really is, so that is probably tainting his beliefs about his fans, but other than that, I don't really have much else to say here. I can understand why he got burnt out on the show, given the amount of content that he put out about it. And I do agree that he should follow where his new passions now reside. Again, since YouTube is his hobby and not his job, he very much should do what he personally wants to do rather than be beholden to the desires of the fans. He also said that there is no point in making a video where he tells his audience that he does not know what his plans are. He said this in reference to him maybe or maybe not making SpongeBob videos back when he was personally debating that, but, yeah, we are going to come back to this statement later. So now that we have covered SpongeBob, let's talk about Disney+. Why? Well, since the recast ended in January 2020, there was now going to be an actual void in Pieguy's channel, and since SpongeBob was not going to fill it, he decided to make a video about a streaming service that he was passionate about the following month. He put a lot of effort into it, and it resulted in a very well produced video that currently has an extremely high approval rating of 97.9%. However, he said that the bummer for him was that it did not get that many views. Oh boy. From a fan standpoint, this is a really concerning thing to hear coming from someone who has YouTube as a hobby. For starters, the video did not tremendously flop. He said that the Disney Plus review was sitting at around 10,000 views. His channel had 75,900 subscribers at the time. That is a view-subscriber ratio of over 13%. That's pretty good, especially for a new kind of content that most of your subscribers did not originally, well, subscribe to. However, even if the video flopped, the fact that he made a video that was not in line with what his channel had been made of for a long time and got bummed out when it did not get the views that he was looking for just gave me the feeling that his channel was on the death knell. The content that people came to his channel to watch was the content that he no longer wanted to make, and he did not want to make the content that the people who came to his channel would not watch, so can you see the problem here? He then goes into the Camp Coral and Butch Hartman videos that he made since he started the recast, including the one that he made after the Disney Plus review, because yes, he made yet another video on that man's scummy actions. He said that he was able to make it in a day because he is passionate about serious issues. I already went into how he displayed that earlier on in his channel's life, but given that he seems to be in a pretty gloomy place, since I haven't mentioned it yet, but the tone throughout the entire video is really dour, it just doesn't sound like the best thing to be passionate about. Fortunately, he said that this was not the direction that he wanted to take his channel in, although he did mention that those drama videos did get a lot of views. This, combined with his passion for drama that has been displayed on his channel for years, does make it sound like there could be a potential conflict of interest going forward if you ask me. Speaking of which, let's get to the crux of all of this. What are his plans going forward? Well, first off, he mentions that he is maintaining a stream of content over on his Let's Play channel. I haven't really gone into that because there's not much to talk about there. It's your standard Let's Play fare with an emphasis on games based on the networks that he talks about as well as Pokemon games. The only thing that I have to say about it is that his channel profile image is, simply put, absolutely horrifying. Seriously, look at this! How is this appealing in any sense of the word? The image used to be a pixelated image of a PyCon with a pie chart hat, which fit his brand really well, so why the heck did he change it to something much more foul? I don't get it in the slightest. Anyways, he also mentions that him and Shadowstreak, one of the frequent WeCast guests and Let's Play channel collaborators, launched the Stream Soda channel where the two of them produce live streams on a piece of animated streaming content that they have watched on a weekly basis. You see, they launched their own channel for discussion-like content, so they learned that it is important to separate the stuff from the main channel. However, the Stream Soda live streams ended less than 3 months after this video's upload, after which the channel was deleted and the live stream archives were moved to the main channel, albeit unlisted in their own playlist so that they don't clog the main channel feed. Which brings us to the grand finale of all of this. What were his long-term plans for the future? Well, he didn't have any. Yep, outside of an HBO Max review, he said that the plans for his channel were up in the air. That's right, the man who said that there is no point in making a video when you don't know what the future of your channel is just said that he does not know what the future of his channel is. Therefore, I will ask, what is the point of making this video? Oh wait, I know, it's to finally explain that someone close to him who had helped him with the channel betrayed him and that caused the channel to go off the rails years ago. Although, to be fair, he did mention that after the recast ended, he struggled to make videos because he lost an entire section of his family to COVID, which is just incredibly sad. To lose multiple family members to the virus just 3.5 months after it was declared a pandemic is just truly heartbreaking, and I have nothing but sympathy for him in that regard. Again, if this had been the reason why his channel derailed in 2018, then that simple explanation would have sufficed without any further details, even if it still would have been nice to get that information in a timely manner. And that's it. That's the entirety of the update video. As you can see, I had a lot of points to make about it, with most of them being critical unfortunately, but at this point it is time to look ahead to what his channel would put out in the future. I explained that this video left me feeling that the future of his channel was on very shaky ground, but he did say that he wanted to be active on this channel again, if only because his job is a boring desk job and he needs an outlet where he can be creative, to which I can totally understand. So now it is time to see what fruits of video labor Pieguy brought us after this. Did they leave me feeling more uplifted and assured that the channel was heading in a good direction? Well, in case you have not figured it out yet, let's take a look. Part 8. The New Direction. So, AJ released his first video after the explanation video less than 1 week later, and it was, well, quite bizarre to say the least. He called it a parody video, but it felt much more like an amateur YouTube poop. It was an interview with M. Night Shyamalan and 2 other individuals, but edited and with AJ's voice clips inserted, all designed to make Shyamalan sound incredibly stupid for making The Last Airbender movie. You know, the movie from 10 years prior? Yeah, you were a little late to the party on that one, Pieguy, which wouldn't be much of a problem if the video was funny, but I didn't find it funny at all. It just made me feel bad that Shyamalan will never be able to rid the shame of that movie. And I'm obviously not saying that he should not be criticized for that movie, but this is not criticism. This is just making Shyamalan sound like an idiot for something that he did a decade prior. It just feels like such a very mean-spirited move on AJ's part, especially since Shyamalan has grown so much as a filmmaker since then. Sure, in general, the films that he made since The Last Airbender might not be masterpieces, but the improved reception shows that someone can learn from their mistakes. But I would be willing to bet that AJ has not watched those films, as he has admitted on multiple occasions that he is not really into movies. You can tell in this video when he refers to Avatar: The Last Airbender as Avatar, when Avatar is not the cartoon that The Last Airbender is based on, and is instead the biggest movie ever made. The entire video is clearly designed to get us to laugh, but the direction and the tone is so off-putting to me that I don't get any comedic vibes from it. I guess if you are drunk, then maybe you might not notice the tone and have a blast with it. So maybe AJ was drunk when he made this? I don't know, but I am moving on from this. The next week he released a video on Quibi. Yeah, remember that gigantic flop of a streaming service? I remember getting so many ads for it back in the day, but I had no idea of just how stupid the service was. So yeah, Pieguy's video was very eye-opening to me in that regard. I gotta tip my hat to AJ on that one. He did a good job there. The following week was... another live stream on Butch Hartman. Yep, I called it. He does not want to become the drama channel, but he just can't help himself. But I've beaten that horse enough. For now anyway, so let's move on. It would take a month-long gap before the next video came out, which was the HBO Max review. As the planned sequel to the Disney Plus review, second verse largely the same as the first really. It's a very well-produced video that generated reception just as good if not better than the previous review, but with a bit less views, so we can probably guess how AJ took that feedback. So, 2 months go by with no new videos, but on October 19th, Pieguy released a trailer for his next project, Every Episode of Adventure Time Reviewed. Yep, he brought back the Every Episode Reviewed series. Because that worked out so well last time, this announcement just completely baffled me. The previous Every Episode Reviewed series burned him out so much that he never wanted to watch SpongeBob ever again. Why would he bring the series back to life with another show that he adores? Maybe it's the fact that Adventure Time is a deeper show than SpongeBob and thus not as easy to get burnt out on, making the problem be with SpongeBob specifically and not himself? But if that's the case, then what about Teen Titans? AJ started that series up around the start of the recast and then did nothing with it after that. You know, if you are going to do Adventure Time in this series, it might be a good idea to do Teen Titans at the same time so that you can alternate between the two shows and not get burnt out on one show or the other. But that's probably not going to happen because, surprise, surprise, the first part of Every Episode of Teen Titans Review did not get near as many views as his main SpongeBob videos did, and he stated multiple times in that first Teen Titans Reviewed video that the series was started and would be continued on the hopes that it would get views. Because that's a good MO for a creative that is making content for YouTube as a hobby, but I have beaten that horse pretty thoroughly as well. Anyways, the video came out a month after the announcement, and yeah, it was definitely a return to form for Pieguy alright, although, again, the video did not do as well as the SpongeBob videos, so I can only imagine how AJ reacted to that feedback. Well, following this video, his next two videos were about Nickelodeon screwing over C.H. Greenblatt with Harvey Beaks, and Nickelodeon probably screwing over the late Stephen Hillenburg with Camp Coral. Yay, more overly negative drama videos, because that's exactly what I wanted to see. Actually, I need to put the sarcasm aside for a second and make something clear. Even though I may sound negative about these, well, negative videos, I do not think that these videos are bad. Far from it, actually. They are as well produced as his other fully edited and scripted videos, and they do cover fascinating information, to the point where I have watched both of the two aforementioned videos multiple times. On their own, they are very solid. However, what concerns me is that the last time we saw AJ on camera, he very much sounded like he was not at all in a happy place, and to see his passion come from things that can ruin anybody's mood just feels very unsettling to me. What compounded that feeling was the livestream that he did in between the release of those two videos. In it, he took the newly released artwork for Camp Coral and deformed it into something absolutely ridiculous. The number of times that I saw him laugh from what I watched of the livestream showed that he was very amused by his handiwork, but I left the video feeling very bemused. It all seemed so silly to the point where it was really hard for me to believe that he was not inebriated while live streaming this. And look, I am not trying to say that getting drunk is the worst thing in the world and that you should stay away from alcohol at all costs and whatnot, especially since I would definitely be lying if I said that I had never taken a shot before, and I have friends and family who have gone down that route before. However, seeing what AJ had become over the past couple of years, which was someone who was shattered by betrayal, seemingly more concerned about his videos getting views than ever before, and mainly passionate about very negative topics, the fact that he seems like he's adding overdosing on alcohol into the mix just felt very troubling. feeling, but if things sound bad now, don't worry, they get worse. Part 9. The Live Show. The next video was Pieguy voting in the 2021 Kids' Choice Awards with Shadowstreak. It was his first collaboration video since the explanation video, and, just like the vast majority of his collaboration videos, it did not do so well in terms of views, becoming the first video on his channel solely focused on voting in the KCAs that did not crack 10,000 views. Heck, he didn't even want to make the video, but Shadow apparently forced him to do it? Watching it, it definitely felt like a standard Pieguy collaboration video with a silly tone, but in this instance, where it is about two adults voting in the Kids' Choice Awards, I think that the silly tone fits and the collaboration between the two works as a non-consistent endeavor. Insert Butch Hartman, and then the opposite happened, clip right here. On April 3rd, 2021, the two of them announced that they were starting a live show. Again. It was called the Award Show Audit, and the focus was going through all of the Primetime Emmy nominees for Outstanding Animated Program on a weekly basis. Not a bad idea if I do say so myself, but I doubt that most of his subscribers were interested in another Pieguy and Shadow live show, since Stream Soda did not do so well. However, unfortunately for them, the live streams clogged their feed because this series was put on the main channel. Yeah, I already went into why doing this doesn't pan out, but Pieguy doing this again told me that either something really bad happened to him again and he once again lost his ability to make videos on a regular basis, or, after Stream Soda did not get as much traction as he probably wanted, he decided to shove it in his subscribers' faces. Needless to say, this backfired horribly. Keep in mind that after the explanation video, even if his videos did not do that well view-wise, he was still gaining subscribers. Between the explanation and the live show, he went from 75,900 subscribers to 76,900 subscribers. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. Once the live show started, though, it dropped off and never fully recovered. By the time the award show audit ended in April 2022, his channel had dropped to 75,700 subscribers, effectively erasing the gains that he made since he quote-unquote revamped his channel and then some. But enough about the effect that the live show had. How was it actually? After all, I said that I did like the concept and I was willing to give it a shot, so what did I think of it? Well, you see, you should know that before I went into it, even though I was willing to give it a chance, I got the feeling that this was going to be similar to the recast in nature, except lazier and more distasteful. You see, even though I can understand why the recast and the other discussion videos did not gain traction, at least those videos were actual, videos. They had editing and other production values that made them feel like there was at least some effort that was put into them. This live show, though, just felt like two buddies met up to hang out and talk about the TV that they watched, and they just so happened to hit the YouTube Go Live button. Aside from some new art that was made by Kuro, I cannot see any other effort put into this. And look, I know that that is the nature of live streams, and I'm not saying that live streams are inherently bad, but they don't work as the primary form of content on a channel that gained its subscriber base through heavily edited and scripted content. The two forms of media mix about as well as beef and chocolate. That is why Twitch is so successful despite YouTube being the king of online video. It was able to corner a market that is inherently different than the kind of content that Pieguy used to make and what most other people make. And of course, there are some people that stream on YouTube, but if streams are going to be a regular occurrence, then they should be on a separate channel, which is something that AJ understood with Stream Soda. But enough about that, let me get into my thoughts on the live show itself. I started to watch it, and let me say, it ended up getting on my nerves. It got so unbelievably silly at points, like when AJ was doing impressions of figures like Craig McCracken, that I got so convinced that he just had to be drunk. It got to the point where I had to go back and forth between the live show and the explanation video just so I could watch something from AJ that was much more somber in tone so that I would not overdose on silly nonsense. And that's not to say that it was silly all the time. They definitely did address the shows that were nominated, but there was so much silly stuff in between that I felt like I was overall wasting my time by watching it. And that, at the end of the day, is why the live show and the podcast and all of the discussion content doesn't mix well at all with the most popular Pieguyrulz content. For those of us that prefer that kind of content, time is at a premium for us. Now, that is definitely not to say that we will not watch long videos, obviously. I mean, just look at the length of his most popular videos. But we do not want to watch videos that have fluff in them that does not pertain to the subject at hand. Scripted content is content that is designed with every word taken into consideration on whether or not it fits within the scope of the video. There is never any unintentional going off topic with that kind of content. When videos are casual discussions with friends and or friendly creators, that is not the case. When people break out into laughter constantly, which often happens when people are with their friends, that is great in a friendly setting, setting, assuming that they are lapping for the appropriate reasons, but as someone who just wants to hear about the subject at hand, it is annoying every time that happens, as it elongates the content with something not related to the point of it all, and it just serves to make the pacing feel really slow. By the time the live show reached the halfway point, I felt like I had enough of my time wasted and I tuned out of the rest of it. The live show had its fans, of course, just like how the recast had its fans, to which the reunion episode came out during the live show's run. And that's cool and all, but for me, I was just going to stick to the largely scripted and edited content that AJ would produce. So what did that entail? Well, not much, unfortunately. He made yet another Butch Hartman video, because why not at this point? This is in addition to a livestream of him going through a leaked build of the Oax's website. He made a video promoting his gaming live streams because his fans were clamoring for more of those. Well, to be fair, his Let's Play channel did get a subscriber bump after this video came out, so I guess the video did have some impact, but since then he has lost most of the number of subscribers that he gained from that bump. Most interestingly of all, though, he brought back the bottom of the Pieguy. In his explanation video, he said that he had ended the series, on a cliffhanger no less, but he never explained why in that video. What was the cliffhanger about? Well, he had left that series off initially halfway through the SETI arc, which is the 5-episode arc of iCarly where Sam and Freddie get into a relationship that, unfortunately, becomes quite abusive, and in the video where he returns to it, AJ mentions that he was in a relationship where he was manipulated and lied to. Whether or not this is the same incident where he claimed that he was betrayed by someone close to him remains unclear, as he said that the relationship drama happened when he was already in a dark place in his life to begin with. In any case, he said that he thinks he is okay now. I don't know about that, but anyway. He followed that video up with the last episode where Sam and Freddie are a thing, thus ending the coverage of the SETI arc on his channel for good. The last video of 2021 that he made was every episode of Adventure Time Season 2, which came out, well, on the last day of 2021. Again, it was another really good video, although it is interesting that, at the end of the video, he said that YouTube is not really a big priority in his life. This is interesting because, at the end of the first video in this series, he said that he wanted to get somewhere close to 100,000 subscribers, indicating that that was a goal that he was actively working towards. This is in contrast to the explanation video where he accepted that his channel is never going to be a big channel, even though he does noticeably fixate on the view counts that he gets, which he mentions in that exact same video, and can you see why I'm all over the place with this guy? Regardless, he said that, at the very least, he is trying to get an Adventure Time season review out every December, which means that, considering that there are 10 seasons of Adventure Time, the PIEGUYRULZ reviews of the entirety of Adventure Time, a show that concluded in 2018, will come to an end in 2029, although that is assuming that Pieguy only does the bare minimum. And, well, in 2022, he did not do just the bare minimum. As it turns out, he couldn't even manage to do that, as no Adventure Time season review came out last year. In fact, no video at all came out on his channel last year. And no, the live streams do not count, they are in their own tab separated from the videos for a reason. And the thing is, it wasn't just the new videos that went away. His last live stream was on April 19th, his last gameplay video went up on March 9th, his last gameplay live stream was on December 5th of the previous year, his last tweet went out on June 17th, the last tweet that he liked went up on August 19th, and his Patreon, well, that is long gone, as it probably went down not long at all after it got revamped in 2018. So yeah, Pieguy has essentially disappeared from the internet, and since I have reached the end of his content, it sounds like there is nothing else for me to talk about. Guess it's time for me to wrap this very long video up, right? Oh no! Stay strapped in, folks, this ride ain't over yet. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to speculate. Section 2. Whatever happened to PIEGUYRULZ? As crazy as it sounds, given the length of this video, there are some things that Pieguy did that I have not yet talked about even though I want to do so. And there is a good reason for this. The goal for this video was to always split it into two main sections, albeit with one much shorter than the other, with each section answering a specific question, being for the first section, where did he come from, and for the second section, where did he go, Cotton Eye Joe? And, unfortunately, this is going to be the darker section of this whole video. You see, I have called AJ's mental state into question when it came to the actions and direction that he took his channel, but there are other things that he said, some of which don't have anything to do with his channel production, that paint a clearer and, disturbingly, more depressing picture of it all. So, are you ready, kids? I sure hope so, because it's time to dig through the thickest layer of muck. Part 1. The power of the social justice warrior? Yeah, I want to start by going back to the October 2015 video that AJ made about how social justice warriors bullied a Steven Universe fan artist. As I have said many times, AJ has been shown to have a passion for serious issues. Heck, in the description of the video, he said that he, quote-unquote, had to make this video because of just how disgusted he got about all of it. Now, within the video itself, AJ talked about how this fan artist attempted suicide after she got all of this harassment. He admitted that while it is the responsibility of the individual to not KYS, he said that people on the internet can absolutely heavily influence you to do that. This statement genuinely perplexes me, as I believe it to be constructed from a very flawed mindset. It makes it sound like AJ believes that these internet harassers can generally be the straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to you ultimately deciding to ruin your life, and that is a belief that I just cannot get behind. I could understand it more if this harassment was happening in person, like at school or the workplace. There, you have these very negative statements about you piercing your eardrums and there is no way to run away from it. Heck, I could even understand it more if this harassment came from friends or family members or other individuals that are very close to you. But random strangers on the internet? Unless these people were saying stuff that is very overtly illegal, like that they know where they and or the people that they care about live and or do business and they are going to show up and hurt them, there is no reason why these people should be able to influence someone to take away their normal livelihood just through internet harassment. And I must put emphasis on the normal livelihood part of that last statement. Of course internet harassment is bad. I'm definitely not trying to say that it isn't. But life ending? You gotta remember, these victims don't know their harassers, and more importantly, their harassers don't know them. Therefore, the negative statements that the harassers are making about them are just completely coming out of their butt, and these artists should realize this and just ignore it all, especially if it is coming just from the creation of a piece of fan art that is not hurting anyone. If these artists cannot do that, then their livelihoods are not, in fact, normal. And I do not at all mean this in an insulting way. I mean this in a depressing way. If these victims are taking these simple internet comments to heart to the point where they attempt to take their own lives, then they are, and I absolutely hate to say this because of how unbelievably sad it is, but I truly do believe that they are already severely mentally damaged through other external factors and they really should seek help. There is never any reason why someone should take their own life, and if some people truly believe otherwise, then they are in a mental state that is so dark and depressing that I simply cannot begin to understand it. And the actions of random strangers on the internet should definitely not be what pushes someone over the edge into that incomprehensible state. Unless there is some bit of very important context that I am missing here, it really sounds like AJ believes that internet harassment can have this much horrible power over someone. And, well, it takes a situation to know a situation, so that implies that AJ has had an experience under his belt and a mental state that is very... well... maybe we should just move along here? Part 2. Butch Hartman Part 2. Christians Boogaloo! Yep, let's talk about that little weasel Butch Hartman some more. I told you we would come back to him because, well, I haven't really gone that much into what he actually did that was wrong, and to be honest, I don't really have any desire to. All of his scummy actions are well documented online, mainly by, well, if you haven't figured out who by now, I really don't know what to tell you. The thing about them that is interesting is that, at least in regard to his actions surrounding Oaxis, they were founded on the precipice of it being a Christian service. This is something that he hid from the public when he was asking for their money. Makes Elmer look like quite the shyster if you ask me, and quite the extreme hypocrite too for the guy who deems himself to be a Christian creating a family-friendly service. And that is the sticking point that I want to address here, in particular in how it comes to the LGBT community, and this is where AJ comes in. In his video where he talks about how Butch was dishonest with the intentions that he stated for the streaming service, he said that since Butch is Christian to the point where he is giving talks about how he wants to change the youth to get them involved in the Christian faith, there is, and I quote, no way that Butch is alright with LGBT people, end quote. Yup, if you are Christian and someone else is LGBT, then you just cannot get along with them. In case you could not figure it out with my veggie-filled content, I am a part of the religious community, so guess how I feel about this statement. Now, to be fair, he did say in the comments that he knows that not everyone in my community is like this, but he still claims that it is a fact that a decent number of us are homophobes. I cannot tell you just how unbelievably untrue that this statement that AJ is purporting to be factual is. Now, if any of you are perturbed by what I just said, let me explain. I have heard people say that there is language in the Bible that states that people being openly LGBT is not the way that God wants them to live their lives. Where does it say this in the Bible? I don't know, and to be completely honest, I don't care. But you know what I do care about? Do you know what every truly religious person can tell you? Do you know what I can quote from the Bible? Leviticus 19:18. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. Yes, the most important thing that God wants us to do is to love everyone, and Him most of all, because He saves us from our sins if we believe in His penultimate sacrifice. I cannot put enough emphasis on everyone. There is no clause that states that LGBT people are to be excluded or anything like that. Heck, this isn't even exclusive to Christianity. As the second largest belief system in the world, Islam also adheres to this ideology as far as I am aware. Granted, I am no Islam expert, but my first-year roommate in college was a devout Muslim from Faisalabad, Pakistan, and from what I have learned throughout my experiences, Muslims believe that they are to be peaceful and generous to one another, with giving alms being one of the 5 pillars of their faith. And if anyone does not adhere to this and is outwardly not cool with LGBT people, like Butch Hartman appears to be, then they are not religious. Not in the slightest. Oh, sure, they might claim to be religious because they believe that saying and doing unscrupulous things in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ makes them look justified to the masses, but Christians are to preach the good news, and the stuff that people like Butch Hartman are doing is bad news all around. And it just really frustrates me that people like AJ make these sweeping, damning generalizations like this. Doesn't he realize that that puts a ginormous, dangerous target on our backs? Look, I know that he has said before that he is not a Christian, namely in his Rugrats Hanukkah video, and that's perfectly fine. I might disagree with his choice, just like how some Christians might disagree with the choices that LGBT people make, but there is a huge difference between simply not agreeing with someone and being just flat out not okay with someone. We can disagree with others and still love them because, as I previously stated, that is what the Bible calls us to do. And AJ, if you are not that familiar with the faith, then maybe don't make videos where you make dangerous statements about messy issues that relate to the subject of Christianity that you do not know all that well. Because, to be completely honest, the only way that I see you coming to this conclusion is if the majority of your exposure to what has been deemed Christianity has been through the horrible actions of people like Butch Hartman that you read about in the media. And that is why I brought this part of the Butch Hartman drama up specifically in this section. I've talked about AJ and his passion for serious issues ad nauseum at this point, but the number of negative media that he surrounded himself with could not have been healthy for someone who already seemed to be on quite shaky ground mentally speaking. And unfortunately, this leads me to what might possibly be the most troubling thing I have ever seen a YouTuber put out there. Part 3. What Pieguy really thinks about his content. Now, you might have noticed throughout this video that I have not really drawn attention to Pieguy's Twitter. Simply put, I am not really much of a Twitter person. I do have an account, but I barely use it. In fact, in November, my Twitter account got hacked and it took me 3 days before I realized it. That being said, I do sometimes look at the Twitter pages of the YouTubers that I follow to see if there are any updates on upcoming video projects, and back in 2018, when Pieguy's followers were getting nothing but recast, I looked to see if there was any new information about future videos being possibly in the works. Now, I cannot confirm what I am about to say, but I do have a memory of a tweet by him put out on October 1st that went along the lines of, "My channel is dying because I am not getting the view counts that I used to get since those viewers are watching other channels that do what I do, but better." At the time, I took this as the thoughts of someone who was very emotionally compromised at the time and therefore was not thinking straight. I did not put any more thought into it than that at the time. However, and this time I can confirm that on February 12th, 2021, AJ put out this tweet. Taking a step away from YouTube and social media for a while, will still be working on the Adventure Time Season 2 review at my own pace. Either wait for it or move on to the many other YouTubers who do what I do but better. Be good, everyone. And it was at this point that I realized just how jarring the statement that he made multiple times is. AJ, are you telling me that the content that you are making is simply crappier versions of content that I can already watch? Excuse me? What kind of statement is that? What creator openly admits that they are working on inferior products? Creators are supposed to have faith in what they make and take pride in what they put out. Yeah, they might be aware that it is going to be hard to stand up to other creators that have more resources than them, but they should not take that defeatism attitude that their products are subpar, and they absolutely should not disclose that information to their audience. For what it is worth, I really enjoyed his Adventure Time Season 2 review. I have watched it multiple times. So is AJ saying that by me watching his video as a fan, I am knowingly wasting my time because I am watching a worse version of something already on the platform? What? Why would you ever say that to your fans? Fans want to see the creators that they watch grow and improve at their craft. Why would fans want to watch someone who is seemingly complacent with making content that is not as good as it could be and actively puts that attitude on display for everyone to see? Man, it's just so much negativity coming from AJ, from social justice warriors to Christians to even his own work. It would be one thing if he saw all of these things that he perceives as negative in the world around him and developed a level of arrogance as a result, but he doesn't even seem to have that. He just appears to be down on both himself and many others to the point where it really comes into question on whether or not this is healthy. And by now, the picture that I am painting in my mind is almost finished. There is one more point that I would like to bring up. Just one more thing. Part 4. I had a friend. Once. When Pieguy started up his discussion-like content, even if it might not have been the content that myself and many of his other fans were looking for, it must have been nice for AJ to do them from a mental standpoint. After all, who doesn't enjoy a good hangout with friends, and it seemed like Pieguy and the ones that he collaborated with generally got along really well, especially the guests that appeared more frequently. And this went beyond those individuals that he just had a casual discussion with. For example, look at the end of his Season 10 review. He thanks Kuro the artist and Aaron for the new and old PyCons, Quazzle for the slide layouts, Nikki the imaginative artist for art advice, Wily Coyote for his music track, and his Patreon backers for monetary support. It really does show that you can get by in life pretty well with a little help from your friends. Isn't that right, Sergeant Pepper? Well, when it came to the end of his next season review of a show, being Adventure Time Season 1, things are a little bit different. He says that he would like to thank so many people. He then thanks Andy and Kuro the artist for the new and old PyCons, and then he thanks a few other YouTubers for listening to him and supporting him, and he thanks the Adventure Time Distant Lands crew for bringing to life a very interesting and fun show. That's it. Nothing for the slide layout, the art, the music, and certainly nothing in terms of patrons. Outside of the ones who made the PyCons new and old, the so many people that he wanted to thank only consisted of his friends for, well, being his friends, and the people who made the show for, well, making the show, neither of which actually contributed anything at all directly to this project. It just gives the impression that he is now neglecting the talents of his friends and now just values his friends as hangout buddies. But hey, there is nothing at all wrong with having hangout buddies as long as a healthy relationship is being maintained. Right? Well, remember how the recast had a guest of the week, causing Pieguy to interact and get along with a bunch of different people? Yeah, that was not the case with the award show audit. To my knowledge, aside from one appearance by Monsters Review to talk about Camp Lazlo and tease the upcoming recast reunion, it was just the Pieguy and Shadow show for the entire run with no other friends in sight. Considering that nothing has been posted to his channel in months, and it took his friends to keep his channel on life support when it was under threat of being banned before, it just gives me the feeling that the people that he used to call his friends have now fallen by the wayside. If he really did lose those friends, that, combined with all of the family members that he lost due to COVID, as well as everything else that I have talked about up to this point, then... well... alright, I cannot hide it any longer. Let me tell you what I am really thinking. Part 5. What I really think happened to Pieguy. At this part of the script, I am at exactly 15,967 words. Yes, I have written just about 16,000 words all about this individual, and I am still going. Why did I do all of this? Because, believe it or not, I care about him. Well, as much as someone can care about a person that they have never talked to but have been endeared by their content anyway. I have been a fan of his content for over 10 years, and when someone that I have enjoyed watching for that amount of time suddenly disappears, I am going to get concerned, and I am not the only one. Look at the comments of his most recent video. Yeah, there are the people who are simply concerned about when the next part of the Adventure Time Reviewed series is going to come out, but there are also people that are genuinely wondering about what happened to him and hope that he is okay. These are people who actually care about him. The problem is that I just don't know if AJ cares about himself, both in who he is and what he does. Now, that might sound like clinical depression to some of you, so do I believe that AJ is clinical depression? Well, in his video on his love for BoJack Horseman, he stated that he had suffered from bouts of depression. Now, when I initially heard this when the video came out in 2017, I just thought that he meant that there were times when he got extremely sad after bad things happened to him, considering that he said immediately beforehand that he tried and failed to get into show business and struggled to find a meaning in his life. A lot of people confuse this kind of sadness with depression and thus say that they had depression or are depressed when they really are not, as explained in this video by Prince, EA? Or is it pronounced Prince Ah? Or I don't know. Point is, I thought that might have been the case originally. But after all of the research that I have done and laid out within this video, well, now I believe otherwise. The guy who got joy out of bouncing around in SpongeBob slippers fell victim to the guy who really needed something to live for when major depressive disorder kicked in. And when this came to light within himself, what happened? Well, he saw tons of fans of a series he loves turn into hate-filled monsters, and not the pocket kind, unfortunately. He had an initial college experience that was absolutely miserable. He saw a fan artist of a show that he loves get bullied and tried to commit suicide. He failed to get into show business. He saw a creator who he thought was cool and made shows that he really enjoyed lie and steal and blaspheme, all while claiming to be Christian. He failed to produce a successful YouTube career. He saw a channel that he once thought was awesome turn out to be far from it. He had someone very close to him who helped him with the channel betray him in a terrible way. He saw two of his fellow creators try to cheat all of the other creators who make a certain kind of content out of the money that they rightfully earn from them. He was in a relationship where he was manipulated and lied to. He saw a Nickelodeon more than likely went behind the back of someone who died at the age of 57 just so they can make more money off of their biggest cash cow. And he had an entire section of his family die from COVID. From a fan's perspective, could he make his situation look any more bleak to us? Well, in his second video on the shadiness behind Camp Coral's creation, he said, and I quote, "There's such a thing as human decency," unquote. Yes, he felt the need to tell us that we are supposed to be decent people, presumably because he either believed that we did not know that, or he simply did not see that in people because of all of the horrible experiences that befell AJ through the nasty jerks in his life. And this isn't even mentioning the stuff that happened in the real world that went beyond his own personal experiences. It's safe to say that the last few years, at least in the United States where AJ lives, have been quite turbulent with very few positives to pick out of that time span. Of course, some people have handled the situation better than others and tried to be optimistic about the whole thing, but AJ, well, not so much. On June 4th, 2020, in the wake of the George Floyd incident and subsequent movement, AJ made a post that was meant to sympathize with the black community for dealing with race inequality. He then followed up that post with this post. Also, if there's anyone upset that this account that was designed to talk about cartoons is now tweeting about race inequality in America, you can blame this country for getting so bad that I have to say something. There is no way to see this and not make a statement. Yep, on top of all of the other crap that I just mentioned that he went through, he believes that his country has gotten very, very bad. And I think it is safe to say that things have not really gotten much better since then, not just for this country, but the world as a whole. In 2022 alone, we saw atrocities ranging from the Russian invasion of Ukraine to the Robb Elementary School shooting. All of that coupled with the highest rate of inflation that AJ has seen in his lifetime, and things can definitely seem extremely bleak for someone with clinical depression. Especially when there was one more thing that happened last year that I did not mention yet but now want to draw special attention to. As I mentioned earlier, the last that we have heard from Pieguy was a tweet that he put out on June 17th. On June 24th, just 1 week later, the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision was made official to the public. The right for women to receive an abortion was determined to not be guaranteed by the United States Constitution, overturning the precedent that was established by the Roe v. Wade decision 50 years prior and strengthened by Planned Parenthood versus Casey 30 years prior. This news upset the internet in a way that I had never seen before. Heck, I tried to present a silver lining to some of my female friends in an honest-to-goodness attempt to cheer them up, and they made me incur the wrath of all things horrible for my statement. To be fair, they did later apologize for doing that, but there were plenty of people on the internet that did not apologize for the very harsh statements that they made about their right being taken away on a federal level. Simply put, you couldn't last 2 seconds on the mainstream internet at the time without hearing a very strong negative opinion about it. And this might just be what caused AJ to snap. As I mentioned before, there were times on his channel where it very much seemed like he was drunk, so if he mixed that with a very sorry mental state, it could have sent him into a downward spiral where his friends and family kept getting pushed out of his life, which further exacerbated the vicious cycle. This brings us to the present day, where there has been nothing to be seen from him in months online. In that regard, there was seemingly nothing for him to say, nothing for him to do, no one for him to be with, and nothing to get his creative wheels spinning again. And when that is the thing that keeps him going when his friends and family members die, leave him, or betray him, then, well, I can't avoid it any longer. The picture painted in my head is complete, and it is not pretty in the slightest. I called AJ out before for not being forthcoming when it came to the absence of the regularly produced content that he created, but this time, when it comes to the absence of him on the internet altogether, I believe that he just didn't know how to say goodbye. It's easy to simply criticize a YouTuber for simply not making the content that you want them to make. In fact, that was my initial goal when I got the idea to make this video all the way back in the summer of 2021. I simply thought it was stupid that the vast majority of content that we got from him was simply the award show audit live streams when those did not get anywhere near the view counts of his videos that most of his subscribers, including yours truly, came to his channel to see. And while I do still currently stand by every piece of criticism that I made in this video, the more research that I did to produce this, the more that I saw a situation in my mind that was happening behind the scenes, and it was very sobering to say the least. YouTube entertainment is fantastic. Yeah, the website has its problems, but videos on this platform have enticed and engrossed millions, if not billions of people in a way that I never could have imagined as a kid. However, nothing, not YouTube, not Twitter or Meta or TikTok or anything should ever come at the expense of the most basic of human rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Making YouTube videos used to make AJ happy, that much I can say with absolute certainty. However, the longer that he stayed on YouTube and, well, the internet as a whole for that matter, the more he surrounded himself with the extremely unsavory parts of it. And it is not like Pieguy is the only one to do this. Mr. Enter also struggled with this a lot in 2020, and he was definitely the focus of my ire at that time. However, in 2021, he started to pull himself out of it. In 2022, he logged off of the internet in June for everything except the necessities, at least until the Dobbs v. Jackson news officially broke, and in 2023, he is continuing to talk about what he wishes to discuss to this very day. Pieguy, on the other hand, went the opposite route, and to a casual fan like I used to be, it was a situation that just ended up producing ambivalence. I unsubscribed and resubscribed from AJ's channel multiple times throughout the past few years because I really struggled to care about what he was doing a lot of the time. But that is what makes all of this so tragic. When you are someone who struggles with crippling self-esteem issues and is surrounded by negativity, when most of the populace that you were able to gather ceases to care about you, then why should you care about you? To someone who is mentally healthy, the answer to that question is very clear. But to someone who is not, then not so much. And since the United States is a country that has been shown to not give a crap about mental health, situations like this can ultimately fester until they get to the point of no return. And that is more than a bit messed up, if you ask me. Alright, well, I guess it's time to talk about what we've learned today. Or at least, I would say that if I was a talking tomato, but as you can see, I am definitely not an anthropomorphic red spherical fruit. Right? I said that I am not a red fruit. What? I am now Bob the Tomato? Did I seriously just turn into a piece of produce? Well, not exactly. You see, this is a BobCon. Original name, I know. I clipped these out and put them on the countertop so that I could start my very own original series titled Every Episode of VeggieTales Reviewed. However, I did not feel right starting the series without addressing the inspiration for this series that has been off the platform for a while now. I guess you could say that I am picking up the torch, but I don't feel like that would be appropriate. I will never be able to replicate what PIEGUYRULZ created. Nobody else will. He was an individual with an incredible passion for cartoons, and since he did not want to get entangled in copyright issues, he went about talking about his passions in one of the most creative ways I have seen yet on this website. Sure, his subscriber count and view counts may not have gotten that high when compared to other YouTubers, but creative success is not something that can be defined solely by quantifiable metrics. Even if his videos were technically nothing more than him simply giving his opinion, he did it in such a creative and innovative way that it had me and many others hooked for years. In a way, Pieguy was a human on planet Earth and all of his subscribers were the sun that gave him and his world life. However, the sun can also be dangerous. Get too close to it and it can seriously burn you, and unfortunately, AJ went the way of Icarus. And I know what some of you may be thinking, and trust me, I too am thinking about the following question. What if Pieguy comes back to YouTube tomorrow and starts making content just like he used to in the good old days? Surely I would feel like a bonehead for making this very long video centered around a belief that turned out not to be true, right? First off, don't call me Shirley. And secondly, no, not at all. If he came back in a way where it really felt like he took all of the criticisms that I listed to heart, then I would be absolutely elated. Just because I stated what I believe to be true does not mean that I want to have that belief. I want to believe that Pieguy is gearing up to make his grandest return yet. Even if I don't realistically see that being the case, it would be really awesome to see him do that. And if he does, then rest assured that we can be there for him to make sure that he does not feel lonely and neglected. Because, as a very wise boy once said, Homies help homies. Always. Now, before you go, I have something that I would like to say. First off, thank you so much for making it to the end of this very long video. I cannot begin to state how much I really appreciate you sticking through it all. And since you guys are awesome, would you mind doing me a little favor? Now that I have laid out all of my cards on the table, I would very much like to know, what do you all think? Do you agree with everything that I said? If so, that's amazing! But if not, please let me know what you have differing thoughts on. Did you come to a different conclusion than I did as a result? Is there some important piece of information that I left out? Are there any personal thoughts of your own that you would like to add? I would love to read about the personal experiences that you had with Pieguy and his videos throughout the years. Also, if any of you know about what the current status of Pieguy is and what his whereabouts might be, I would really like to have that information as well. If there is some way that I could possibly get in contact with him, that would be stellar. Please post whatever feedback you may have in the comments, or if you want to make a video response or reaction, even better. And if you want to message me personally, you can email me at thatmediaguy150@gmail.com. The link will be in the description, and I would love to hear what you all have to say. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Click the red button to subscribe, and have a fantastic rest of your day doing whatever.